It wasn't an algorithm. You need to understand that first. The images and sounds you were shown, the cryptic numbers that appeared in your recommendations, that was a signal, a tuning fork resonating with something already inside of you. You were chosen because you are one of the few who senses that the reality we see is just a fraction of the whole story, a beautiful, hypnotic, but fragmented echo. For months, you've been collecting those echoes, feeling their power without understanding the source. Consider this video the first translation of that source. This is not another theory or a guess. This is the blueprint, the very architecture of the philosophy you've been subconsciously drawn to. What you are about to see is the key that elevates you from a mere spectator of the mystery to an active participant in its unfolding. The puzzle pieces are in your hands. Now, let's begin to assemble them.
Choice enjoys a much better reputation than it deserves. From a distance, it looks like openness, space, a multiplication of possibilities. Up close, it often takes the less glamorous form of endless upkeep, a kind of tax levied on every stretch of the day, even those that never promised to be significant. Deciding what to tackle first, what to put off without feeling like you're taking the easy way out, how extensively to reply, how much to explain, which version of yourself to present in response to someone else's request, which irritant to leave in the background, and which must be confronted immediately. All of this doesn't necessarily breed drama, but it inevitably consumes you whole. A major decision, at least, possesses a certain dramatic flair. You can tell stories about it, look back on it, even treat it with a degree of respect. Minor choices are made with far less fanfare and far more ruthlessness, because they present themselves as insignificant, and for that exact reason, they are never credited with the sheer weight they actually accumulate. The order imposed on things, the established priority, a yes uttered with slight hesitation, a no put off for another day, a minor detour that seems to cost nothing yet still leaves a residue. It is amidst this dust of daily decisions that you begin to seek refuge. You almost never construct it consciously. No one sits down to solemnly blueprint their own daily economy. More often than not, it is forged out of pure fatigue, by repeating whatever met the least resistance from the environment the day before. A specific sequence of movements, a convenient block of time, a response that's already poised to roll off your tongue, a little warm-up ritual before work, a minor prerequisite without which everything will feel far more aggravating. At first, there's nothing wrong with that. This is purely a mitigation of the pressure exerted by the surrounding circumstances, almost an unspoken pact between the mind and the material world. However, whatever reduces friction has a way of becoming an addiction much faster than you're willing to admit. Routine doesn't require you to believe in it. It offers a ready-made point of entry. You step into a sequence, and something inside you stops demanding answers. Your horizon narrows, the number of active variables drops. Your body recognizes the familiar procedure and can afford to stop micromanaging every single step. There is a very tangible comfort in this, perhaps not the most profound, but highly effective. Absolute freedom, when dragged into everyday life, can turn into a room lit too brightly, where every single object demands to be chosen all over again. This is exactly why certain repetitive gestures become our functional safe havens, not because they harbor some hidden depth, but because they are ready to use. They allow you to start taking action without getting into preliminary negotiations with the entire world. First one thing, then another. First, you reduce the clutter, then you can tackle the actual task. First, you check some minor detail, then you step into a more vulnerable space. From the outside, some of these little rituals might seem useless or even slightly ridiculous, but from the inside, they serve a crystal clear purpose. They keep openness from becoming dispersion. There is a distinct logic to this kind of reduction. Heuristics, to use a drier, more academic term, exist in part for precisely this reason. Not to find the perfect solution every single time, but to make action itself possible under less than perfect conditions. The mind isn't always searching for the ultimate truth. Often, it's just looking for a good enough route that will save it from paralysis. The economics of decision-making is far less elegant than the books describe, because it operates not in a sterile lab, but right in the middle of jam-packed days, hasty snacks grabbed on the go, poor sleep, piling requests, text messages, rooms that need cleaning, and thoughts that haven't quite taken their proper shape yet. The body figures this out long before any theory does. When you are tired, you make fewer choices, or you choose whatever demands the least amount of engagement with the outside world. You move toward the familiar not because it is always right, but because it has the courtesy not to interrogate you too much. A habitual choice has its own gravity. It pulls you in without using force, relying instead on the soft power of what is already readily available. In this way, repetition becomes a way to sidestep constant challenges. It spares you the hassle of having to present a full stack of paperwork to the court of possibilities every single time. Naturally, there is a double-edged nature to this. A refuge, if you stay in it too long, begins to feel like a boundary. The very thing that once allowed you to move forward without burning out can start to dictate, in advance, where it's easiest for you to go, which answers seem reasonable, and which detours feel pointlessly exhausting. A choice eliminated out of necessity can morph into a choice eliminated out of habit. And at first, the difference isn't always obvious. Sometimes it just feels like a slight narrowing of your horizon, a certain monotonous loop to your days. A creeping suspicion that the relief you were granted is starting to claim far more territory than you ever intended. Still, there's no need to feel guilty about it. That would simply amount to one more unnecessary expense. Some repetitions ought to be protected, because they are the very glue that holds everything together. They are what make work possible, what make caring for others possible, what allow for at least a bare minimum of internal continuity. Without them, every single day would turn into a grueling tug-of-war with the material world. And yet, from time to time, it pays to notice where you stopped making choices because it made sense to do so, and where you stopped simply because the default procedure aligns a little too perfectly with your exhaustion. This doesn't have to be some grand, dramatic question. Sometimes it's enough to just let it drift to the surface for a split second, right next to your most automatic reactions. There are moments when you can spot a barely perceptible crack in a familiar gesture. You're about to follow the usual sequence, the most convenient, the most accessible one, and for a split second you realize that it isn't just a little too convenient. It has grown too stale and overconfident. You don't necessarily have to interrupt it. Sometimes you go through with the routine anyway. But that tiny hesitation shifts the balance of power, because what once felt like a force of habit becomes, if only for a moment, a choice you finally allowed yourself to make. And perhaps in that exact moment, the fatigue doesn't disappear, but it does take on a different name. See you in the next episode.